The process actually was started off for myself. My art, my theatre is my passion. And then I had two children, and I had them quite close together, so they were very small. And I knew immediately that it would be difficult for me to try and balance my love for my theatre with my responsibilities and love for my children. So I decided to take a break from theatre for about 4 or 5 years. Passing stage was my way of collecting myself again as an artist and as a mother. And I chose to do it in a manner that I had never done before, which is to bring those two identities together. Up to that point, I had never really used my own life for my art. Now looking back at it, I think when you become a mother, anyway, society redefines you. And that is one of the starkest redefinitions I think that a human being goes through. I don't think a man, when he becomes a father, goes through such a stark redefinition of his identity. Sometimes motherhood does that to you. It makes you feel that you're the only one who's going through certain things. It can become quite lonely. Though you know everybody else has had children, you feel that what you're going through has only been experienced by you. So when I sort of looked up and looked around me, I realized that there were lots of other artists, mothers, my close friends who were just like me, and I decided to involve them also in this process of self-reflection. The several of us who had stopped being artists, it was a really good way to enter back into being an artist and a mother, but with a sense of empowerment and a sense of an owned identity that had just got more complex.
So I think I joined the project for two reasons. One, because it was Ruanti, and I hadn't worked with her before.
Whenever she has asked me to be in anything, there has been no hesitation. I've just said yes. And by that point, we'd already collaborated quite a lot. She'd been in my shows, I'd been in hers.
And I joined because of Ruanti. She asked me. I've always had trouble saying no.
ඕනම කෙනෙක් කැමති තමන්ගේ ජීවිතයේ තියෙන අර්බුද ගැන කායික හරි කතා කරන්න. ඒක තරදුරක මේ ආරක්ෂිත හැඟීමක් තියෙනවා. අපි ඔක්කොම එකට ඉන්නවා කියලා හැඟීමකුත් තියෙනවා. ඒක තුල තමන්ව මේ ගේ බර සැහැල්ලු කරගන්න ඕනකමකුත් තියෙනවා.
And secondly, I think the exercise sounded quite interesting. To be honest, I thought it would be low time commitment.
How do we collaborate more and create something that is made by all of us and sort of try and escape these boundaries of like English theatre, Sinhala theatre. So the prospect of working together with these women, some who I admired very much, was really exciting. And that's what kept me sort of engaged with the whole process.
It's very difficult to write from a position of pain. You don't want to write about it. You don't want to delve into it. You want to get away from it. Being forced to confront it is always difficult. So why did I continue then? I think I continued because I wanted to count. I wanted to feel. I did it for me. I joined because Ruanti asked me to. I joined because I wanted to be with people like Ruanti and Nadi. And it became a purely personal, I would say selfish desire to prove to myself that I was still capable of doing things other than wiping snotty noses and changing diapers. I wanted to feel that I could still do something more than that I could make a contribution, however small or insignificant, to something bigger than this very small, admit it. I mean, we romanticize it, we idealize it, this role of motherhood, justly so. But ultimately, it's a very domestic and small role. Nobody sees you play it except your children, really. The bringing up of my younger daughter, I was 35 when I had her. It was difficult. I was older, I was slower, I was clumsier. I was not so quick mentally, physically. But I was told in so many ways and forms, just get on with it. You're not the only one. අපිත් කෙරුවා. අනිත් අයත් කරනවා. ඔහොම තමයි. අම්මලා වුණාම ඔහොම තමයි. This is what you hear. So it's a very small role. Its importance and its significance is swallowed up. I wanted to do more than that. You know, I had forgotten that I wanted to ever do more than that. So this was an opportunity for me to do something.
I think Naren was 3 years at that time, and I was a single parent. I had been a single parent since he was 1 year, so I wasn't new to it. I was working full time. After having taken a break of 1 year, I was working full time. I hadn't completely given up theatre, so in fact, I think I had already done a production 1 year after he was born. But it was definitely a struggle finding time to do anything other than work and looking after him.
As a mother, I had 2 young children. They were 4 and 5 at the time. As an artist, I think it was a really exciting and creative time for me. And it was a really interesting period of being in a place of not knowing and being okay with that.
ඒ කියන්නේ මට ටිකක් වයසට ගිහිල්ලා මට දරුවෝ ලැබුණේ. ඒගොල්ලා නියුන් දරුවෝ. ඉතින් මං ජීවිතේ මං ගාක් බලාපොරොත්තුෙන් හිටපු දෙයක්. නමුත් ඒක ලැබුණාම මට මේ හිතා ගන්න බැරුව ගියා මේ මම මොකද්ද දැන් ඊගාට කරන්න කියලා. ඒ මට දැනුනේ මගේ ජීවිතේ නැවතුණා වගේ. එතනින් එහාට මට ජීවිතයක් නැහැ. මං ආයේ රංගපාලා ඉවරයි. මට යාළුවා හම්බෙන්න එකක් නැහැ. මොකද ඒ තරම් වැඩ කන්දරාවක් ඩාක් වැඩි. මට ඇත්තටම මේ වෙලාවේ එහෙම ලොකු ආසාවක් ඇත්තටම ඇති වුණේ නැහැ. මොකද මං හුඟක් අත්හැරලා තිබුණේ ඇත්තටම. හුඟක් දේවල් අත්හැරලා මට එහෙම තත්ත්වයක ඉන්නේ නැද්දි මට ලොකු රසයක් කලාවත් එක්ක දැනුන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම සම්බන්ධයක් දැනුනේත් නැහැ. රසයක් දැනුනේත් නැහැ. ඒකෙන් මට තෘප්තියක් දැනුනේත් නැහැ.
I wanted at that time to forget motherhood. It was the source of such conflict and pain, really, at that time. So it was a very difficult thing. It was not, it was difficult because having to write about it demanded a level of honesty and delving into areas of experience and thought that I frankly did not want. I mean, they were the badlands. I didn't want to go there, you know.
ආටිස්ට් කෙනෙක් ඇතරම හිටියේ නැහැ. ඒ කියන්නේ මම හිතන්නේ මම තනිකරම අම්මා කෙනෙක් වෙලා තමයි හිටියේ. අම්මා එකෙත් මම හිතන්නේ ඒකේ ගිලා බහැලා එරිලා මං හිටියේ. ඔයා දැන් අම්මා කෙනෙක්, ඔයා දැන් අම්මා කෙනෙක් කියලා වෙන මොනවා හරි දෙයක් කරන්න හිතුණත් හැමතිස්සෙම අර ඒක අම්මා කෙනෙක් නේ ඔයා දැන් කියලා මම මටම කියාගෙන ඒක කොහොමද යටපත් කරගන්නවා. ඒවත් එක්ක සහ මහා පිස්සුකුත් තිබුණා මේ අර මේ හොඳ අම්මා කෙනෙක් කියන්නේ උත්තරීතර අම්මා කෙනෙක් නැත්තම් කිසිම වැරද්දක් පොඩ්ඩක්වත් එහාට මෙහාට කරන්නේ නැති අම්මා කෙනෙක් වෙන්න ඕනේ වගේ නිකන් පිස්සු මොකද්ද පරමාදර්ශයකුත් ඔළුවේ තිබුණා. කලාවත් එක්ක ඇත්තටම නම් තිබිච්ච එකම සම්බන්ධය අම්මා කෙනෙක් වෙන එක හරහා ළමයාට කලාව ඉන්ට්‍රොඩියුස් කරන්න තමයි කලාවත් එක්ක සම්බන්ධය තිබේ. කියන්නේ මට පොත් කියවන්න තිබිච්ච ආසාව එයාට ගිහිල්ලා මේ ළමා කතා පොත් තෝරගෙන ඇවිල්ලා ඒවා කියලා දෙන එක. නාට්‍ය බලන්න ගියත් මම හිතන්නේ එයාත් එක්කලා ගිහලා ළමා නාට්‍ය බලන එක තමයි කරේ. මොකද ඒ කාලෙ වෙද්දි මේ නාට්‍යයක් කරනවා වගේ කියන එක මේ පිස්සුද? කියන්නේ මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ ඔයා දැන් අම්මා කෙනෙක් දැන් ඔයා නාට්‍ය කර ඒක ඇත්තටම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම ඈතක තිබිච්ච දෙයක්. සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම රුවන්තිගේ තමයි මේ අදහස අපි මේක රයිටින් ප්‍රොසෙස් එකක් පටන් ගමු කියන අදහස. අපි ගැන ලියමු, අපි අත්දැකීම් ගැන ලියමු. කියලා. හැබැයි ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් අර කොච්චර ඇතුලේ ඉන්න එකාව එහෙම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම මේ අයින් කරන්න බැහැනේ. ඉතින් ඒකට ගැන කතා කරනකොට මටත් ආවා වුණා. හරි මචං එහෙනම් අපි මොකක් කරමු. ඒ කියන්නේ මේ අම්මා රෝල් එකට පොඩකට බලපාන්න බැහැ අපි කරන දේවල්. අපි කොහොම හරි ඒක ASCII අර ඒ ටිකට ඩිස්ටර්බ් වෙන්නේ නැති එකක් කරගමු කියලා. ඉතින් එහෙම තමයි මම හිතන්නේ මේ අයිඩියා එක ඇවිල්ලා අපි වැඩේ පටන් ගත්තේ.
පළවෙනි අභ්‍යාසය ලියුම්. මොකද මට හිතුණා ඒක ලේසි තැනක්. මොකද සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සු ලියුම් ලියනවා සහ යම්කිසි දෙයක් කෙලින්ම කාට හරි කියන එකේ අවශ්‍යතාවය මිනිස්සු ඇතුලේ තියෙනවා කියලා. ඉතින් මම ඒකෙන් තමයි පටන් ගත්තේ. මටත් ලේසි ඒක. ඒ ලියුම් වලට මම ලැබුණ ප්‍රතිචාරයේ උත්තර මට ලැබුණා. මම ඇත්තටම ටිකක් බය හිතුණා. මොකද මම කවදාකවත් බලාපොරොත්තු නැහැ ඔච්චර අවංකකමක් ඔච්චර නිර්භීතකමක් මෙන්න මේ එකතු වෙච්ච පිරිසෙන්. මට මතකයි මං නදීටත් මෙන්න මේ ලියුම් ටික පෙන්නලා කිව්වා දැන් මොකක්ද අපි කරන්නේ. මට ඒ මොහොතේ තමයි මට පොඩ්ඩක් මේක කොච්චර දැවැන්ත දෙයක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා ඉස්සෙල්ලා මගේ ඔළුවට වැටුනේ මෙන්න මේ මොහොතේ. ඊළඟ අභ්‍යාසය මොකක්ද කියලා. දෙවෙනි අභ්‍යාසය, තුන්වෙනි, හතරවෙනි, පස්වෙනි අපි එහෙම අභ්‍යාස 7ක් ගියා. අවුරුදු 10කට පස්සේ මං හැරිලා බලද්දී මං හිතනවා මම ඉබේම හිතන්නේ නැතුවම මං අර ඩිවයිසින් ක්‍රියාවලියට එකතු වුණා ඒ මොහොතේ. එතකොට පළවෙනි අභ්‍යාසය ඉවර වුණාම තමයි මට ඊළඟට ඔළුවට ආවේ හරි. දැන් උත්තර මම කියවලා ඊට පස්සේ මට තේරෙනවා හරි. දෙවෙනි අභ්‍යාසය මෙන්න මේක විය යුතුයි කියන එක. ඉංග්‍රීසි වලින් පටන් ගත්ත එක ඊට පස්සේ ලිස්ට් වලට ගියා, ඊට පස්සේ සින්දු වලට ගියා, ඊට පස්සේ රිවිව්ස්, ඊට පස්සේ සාකච්ඡා, ඊට පස්සේ එතකොට මට අවශ්‍ය වුණා මේ පුළුවන් තරම් අර ලියන ක්‍රියාවලිය, අපි ලියන විදිය විවිධ ආකෘති වලින් මේ සබ්ජෙක්ට් එක මේ කතා කරන්න. කිසිම හදිස්සියක් නැතුව ඒ මුළු process එක එහෙම්මම නිකන් ඉංග්‍රීසියෙන් කියන organically ඉස්සරහට ගියා.
Maybe the tasks that I got very excited about was those that I thought were actually going to help me to process my own experiences. I loved the letters. And that's like maybe for me the example of where I thought, hey, this is a good opportunity for me to write to a few people in my life and tell them how I feel. So I guess that's why I really liked that. So I actually also took the time quite a bit on the letters. The lists were just lots of fun to do. I actually also liked the nursery rhyme and changing the lyrics. So those were the ones that I had a lot of fun with, where I felt the letters was probably the most meaningful one for me.
The conversation, the seventh task was really fascinating. I remember as I got it, I would sit down and write right then and there. I was kind of very engaged with it. Other tasks, and I think as the process went on and I became busy in other things and also had to look after the kids, I would often find myself only starting to write at about 10, 11 at night, and then I was tired and your head is empty and you're like, oh my God, what should I write about? So I have to say, I didn't participate in some of the tasks at all, mostly because it's just a feeling of being very tired, and also I think in sometimes just a little bit too much pressure. Because I didn't consider myself a writer. So there's a little bit of insecurity there as well.
මට කතා කරන්න ඕනේ අය ඒ කියන්නේ මට මගේම ජීවිතය ඇතුළේ සහ සමාජයේ චරිත ගණනාවක් හිටියා මූණට මූණ හම්බලා මට මේක කියන්න ඕනේ කියලා හිතෙනවා. ඒක කියන්න තිබිච්ච ටාස්ක් එක තමයි අතරම ලියුම්. මොකද ලියුම් වලින් අපි ඇඩ්‍රස් කරනෝනේ කාට හරි. මොකද මට කියන්න තිබුණා සමහර අයට බනින්න තිබුණා, සමහර අයගෙන් තමුසලට පිස්සුද කියලා අහන්න හිතුණා. සමහර අයට චෝදනා ගොඩක් තිබුණා මට කරන්න. සමහර අයට මට ස්තුති කරන්න තිබුණා. සමහර අයට ආදරේ කියන්න ඕනකම තිබුණා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මම හිතන්නේ ලියුම් ටාස්ක් එකට මම ගොඩක් කැමතියි. මට හිතෙන්නේ නිර්නාමිකව ලියනවයි කියන එක ඇතුලේ. කියන්නේ මම ලියන දේ මමයි ලියුවේ කියලා අනිත් අය දැනගන්නේ නැහැ. කියන කොන්දේසියක් අපි දාගත්තා. අපි ඒක ආරක්ෂා කරන්න මේ ක්‍රියාවලියකුත් හැදුවා ඒ කොහොමද නිර්නාමිකත්වය රැකගන්නේ කියන එක. මම කියන දේ කවුරුත් දැනගන්නේ නැහැ කියන එක ඇතුලේ නිදහසකුත් ලැබුණා. මට වැදගත් වුණ නැහැ කියලා මම කියනවා නෙමෙයි. නමුත් අපි හිතමු නිර්නාමිකත්වය කියන කොන්දේසිය එතන නොතිබුණා නම් ඒ වුණත් මම හිතන්නේ මම මගේ රයිටින්ග්ස් වල මම කියපු දේවල් ටික කියන්න ඉඩ තිබුණා කියලා.
I have to say, I was partly skeptical about the anonymity part because I'm like, this is Colombo. Colombo is small, right? Anybody reading my thing, if you put a couple of the tasks together, could probably hazard a guess about who I was.
And personally, it gave me a lot of freedom. And I've just been glancing through some of the stuff we wrote, and I have, I think, just not writing as Tracy Holsinger just allowed me to write about a whole range of things in a style that kind of evolved, because I hadn't really considered myself a writer as such. So these tasks kind of opened up a sort of form of creative expression for me that I hadn't really explored.
So it was always this really interesting thing to see people taking up my writing and then interpreting it how they wanted. And part of me wanted to say, no, that's not what I meant. Or no, please don't say it that way. But then they were also taking a different spin to what I was saying, and that was really lovely to see. And I was probably doing the same with so much of their writing.
අපේ සමාජය තුළ අපි හුඟක් දේවල් හංගගෙන ඉන්නේ. හුඟක් දේවල් හංගගෙන ඉන්නේ. ඒ නිර්නාමික වීම තුළ මමත් හැංගිලා දැන්. මාව හඳුනගන්න එකක් නැහැ කියලා. හැබැයි ඒ කොහොම කිව්වත් ලියලා ඊට පස්සේ කියවලා බලනකොට මේ අපි ඔක්කොම කට්ටියමනේ මේ ඒගොල්ලන්ගෙම තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න ටික. එතකොට ඒක අහවලා කියලා වෙන් කරේ නැති වුණාට අපි ඔක්කොම එකයි කියන හැඟීමකුත් ආවා. අපි ඔක්කොම එකයි නිර්නාමික වුණා.
Writing, no matter what the ultimate audience is for what you write, whether what you are writing is going to be published and read by millions of readers, no matter if what you're writing is going to be performed for millions of viewers, the act of writing itself is a very personal thing. It's a transaction you engage in with yourself. So because of that, the safety net of anonymity becomes negligible to a certain extent. When you write, you are forced to sit down, confront certain things about, and writing about the experience of being a mother, the different interactions you need to have with individuals, with institutions, the ways in which you are forced to re-evaluate and assess your responses to the world around you. That is an exercise that demands that you expose yourself, unclothe yourself to you. That's not always the most comfortable thing to do. So it's an embarrassing thing. I was hesitant to do it when it came to certain exercises. I was frightened to do it. I didn't want to do it. I hated doing it. These were all responses to the various exercises. So ultimately, that anonymity actually counted for nothing. I might be anonymous to other people, but I could never be anonymous to me.
Bringing the women together for the 7th task, it was not a decision that I had taken earlier. It was something that felt natural to do. One is I was beginning to feel the weight of this collective journey that I had started now. And I was conscious of these women who were giving so much of their lives, their honesty, their time, the risk they were taking. Some of them didn't know me. There was no reason for them to trust me, but they were doing this. And I felt it was the time to bring them together for some kind of sharing, some kind of collective strength that we could give each other. And at this point, again, remember, there was no sense of whether we would ever perform this, would it this entire thing could have gone underground at that point. And in a way, getting the women together was also a way of trying to understand what they wanted to do with the material.
Meeting the people concerned was a big relief in a way. Hearing what they had to say. Not so much that it made you feel you were not alone, but it made me feel halfway normal. You know, like it was like an endorsement. It was like a real, like a Oluwa Thagano saying, it's okay, you know, it's all right to be this way. Seeing it performed, hearing a line here, a line there, that I knew I had been responsible for was such a kick. You know, I mean, like honestly, nothing like that had ever happened to me before. Nothing like that will probably ever happen to me again.
මට මාර කුතුහලයක් තිබුණා සමහර වෙලාවට සමහර ඒවා ලිව්වේ කවුරු වෙන්නේ නැතිද හරි මෙතනින් මොකද ඒ තරම් සමහර ඒවා මාර ලස්සන ඒතර ගොඩක් ඒවා ලස්සනයි ඒ රයිටින්ග්ස් මට නම් හම්බෙච්ච වෙලාවෙ ඉඳලා අහන්න ඕනකම තමයි අර කොහාද ලිව්වේ ඔයා මේක ලිව්වේ ඔයාද වගේ එහෙම ඇහුවේ
ඇත්තටම මට නම් ලොකු ආඩම්බරයක් දැනුණා මට මිනි කවුරුත් අපිව ජජ් කරනවා නෙමෙයි අපි කියන්නේ අපේ දේ අහගෙන හිටපල්ලා කියනවා වගේ හැඟීමක් මට ආවා. ඉදාටත් වැඩිය පසුව අවුරුද්දකට විතර පසුවත් ඒ ගැන කතා කරපු අය හිටියා. බොහොම අවංකව තමන් ගැන තමන්ගේ සීමාවන් කිසි දෙයක් බැරියර්ස් දාගන්න නැතුව ජීවිතය ගැන එහෙම කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් වීම තුලම ලොකු ශක්තියක් ලැබෙනවා මම හිතන්නේ.
I come from a fairly conventional background, which never took too kindly to the idea of performance, public performance. It's easy to be rebellious when you're young. We lose that elasticity when we grow older. I was just too tired, you know. So I just let it go. But I felt really bad. I felt terrible. I felt deprived. Once you begin to think of yourself as an artist, it's very much like thinking of yourself as a mother. You don't stop. You don't stop being an artist just because you don't perform your art. Being an artist is not about doing, it's about being. And being unable, either because of your own actions or influence or whatever, being unable to be performative and proactive in that being is a difficult thing, you know. It's a difficult thing. So it was tough. We really don't think about how much we lose. We all talk about, and I think society forces us to think about the gains. There are ways in which we are tricked into thinking that nothing better than this is ever going to happen to us, you know, that this is, my gosh, your privilege, that you were able to do what, after all, most animals can do, you know. This is somehow such a spiritual gift, that it's such a give, you know. And you know, we are tricked by this. We fall victim to this. We swallow this, you know. And in swallowing it, we happily, willingly, and with a great sense of achievement, discard so much of who we are. And we never, if rarely, get the chance to get those pieces back. So I got one of those pieces back when I heard somebody else publicly speak a line that I had written. It was a real kick.
අපි දන්නවා මේ ඔඩියන්ස් එකේ ඉන්නවා වෙන්න ඉන්නේ යන්නේ කවුද කියලා අපි දන්නවා. සමහර මගේ ලියුමක් මම ඇඩ්‍රස් කරලා තියෙන කීප දෙනෙක්ම ඔඩියන්ස් එකේ ඉන්න යන බවත් අපි දන්නවා ඒකේ. ඒවත් එක්කම මම දැනගෙන හිටියා ඔඩියන්ස් එකට මේක ටිකක් එහෙම ලේසියෙන්ම ගන්න පුළුවන් කතන්දරයක්වත් නෙමෙයි. ඒ නිසා මගේ ඔළුවේ මේ ඔඩියන්ස් එකේ ප්‍රතිචාරය කොයි වගේ එකක් වෙයිද කියන ගැන පොඩි චන්ඩි හැඟීමකුත් තිබුණා. ඒ වගේම පොඩි නර්වස් හැඟීමකුත් තිබුණා. performance piece එකක් විදිහට මම දන්නවා ඒක හරි challenging වුණා audience එකට. අපි මේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙච්ච නැති විදිහේ ප්‍රතිචාරات අපිට මේ අපි හිතුව ගොඩාක් progressive කියලා අපි හිතාගෙන හිටපු අයගෙන් අපිට ලැබිච්ච ප්‍රතිචාරය පිරිමි අය විශේෂයෙන් ඒක ටිකක් වෙනස්. සමහර අය කතා කරෙත් නැහැ. පෞද්ගලික මගෙන් ඇහුවත් ඒක ලිව්වේ ඔයාද ඒක ඔයාගේ පීස් එකක්ද ඒක මේ ඒ වගේනේ අපේ එහෙම ගත්තා මම හිතන්නේ ඒ කාලේ ඔඩියන්ස් අපරාධය අපි ඒක එක සැරේ කරේ.
I think one of my saddest parts of this is so much rich material that never got put on stage. And that there is so much that is still unsaid and not performed, and just beautiful writing in itself, even if it's not performed, that there's so much more we could do with it, and what you can do within a limited amount of time to devise and put on the stage. I think we still got a lot of it out in very nice ways, but I wonder if you can ever kind of present everything that has been written in this thick manuscript in ways that do justice to the writers.
අනිවාර්යෙන්ම අපි manuscript එකෙන් යන්න පුළුවන් දුරේ දශමයක්වත් අපි ගියේ නැහැ. මං හිතන්නේ ඒ මොහොතේ අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් ටික තමයි අපි කරේ. අපිට සම්පත් තිබුණේම නැහැ. ඔක්කොම ඒ කියන්නේ මේ manuscript එක අර මේ 13 දෙනෙක් එකතු වෙලා ලියලා එවපු material විතරක් නෙමෙයි. අපි මේ හැම දෙයක්ම translate කරා. ඉතාම පරිස්සමෙන්. සහ අන්තිමට අපි show එකකුත් කරා. ඒ කියන්නේ කිසිම funding කිසිම දෙයක් නැතුව අපි ළමයිනුත් අටවගෙන මම හිතන්නේ අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන් ටික ඒ මොහොතේ කරා. මේක public document එකක් වෙන්න ඕනේ. අපි ඒක ලියුවට ඒ අයිතිය අපේ නෙමෙයි කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා. මොකද මේක පොදු කතාවක්. එතකොට මං හරි කැමති මේකට තව අලුත් ජවයක් වෙන කොහෙන් හරි ඇවිල්ලා ඒක අරගෙන මොකක් හරි ආර්ට් එකක් හැදුවොත් මං හරිම කැමතියි.
I mean, I think I still see at least one or two more opportunities when the writers themselves can present. But then I also like how Kalumali used this as the foundational material and did a piece of devised theatre that was completely different. So I think there is a few others ideas that other people, other groups, other theatre groups can also probably take. So it would be great to see this kind of also open source material in some ways for people to devise from. Again, I think, I mean, outside kind of theatre and performance art, just the writing and how that writing could possibly also help other mothers in Sri Lanka, I think that's also something to think about.
We are 10 years older. As mothers, we have 10 years more experience. As artists, we are 10 years more mature. It's not everyone who has a milestone like that they can evaluate themselves against. But here we have this collective milestone. So I feel it's essential actually that we come together and we look at the material again, we look at ourselves again, we look at each other again, and we say, okay, now what needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were moments when kind of it was holding a mirror to my face, and that was difficult. Kind of possibly had a public persona that probably still remains about being this stoic, resilient, confident person, but there was a lot of breaking inside, a lot of heartbreak, still a lot of heartbreak, and other stuff has happened that's added to that. Life didn't really turn out the way you planned it. That was hard. I still just now I looked at my what would I like to do, that list, and gosh, I'm still not there in terms of what I told myself 10 years ago I would have done by now, right? I don't think I've got any of those properly. I'm a much more evolved person than I was, so maybe that's what I should have promised myself. But in terms of a list of to-dos, I haven't. So it did at that time, and possibly even now, hold the mirror up to my face in a way that maybe no other process had, to say, yeah, life didn't really turn out the way you planned it.
Would I reveal this material? I think unhesitatingly yes. Particularly with my older daughter. I feel so much of me in her. I would share it with her and even with my younger daughter. Essentially, to tell them that, this is also me, for them to be able to see that that they are me, who I don't even know how they see me, but some sort of factotum, obviously, just like I'm the one who picks them up, makes them go for math class, washes their dirty clothes, makes them eat food they don't really want. I want them to see me as something a little more than that, because I love them, and I want to leave them with a more personal sense of who their mother was should I die tomorrow.
මං හිතන්නේ ඔව්. මං හිතන්නේ මම දැනටමත් ඒක කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ යාට මේ මුළු ක්‍රියාවලිය අර හිමි කියනවා නෙමෙයි. නමුත් සමහර රයිටින්ග්ස් එකෙන් මම මේ කියවලා තියෙනවා. මං හැබැයි කියලා නැහැ ඒක මේ මොකක් වෙනුවෙන් කරාද එහෙම කියලා. තාම ඒකට පොඩි කියලා මං හිතන්නේ. හැබැයි ඔයා ලොකු වෙනකොට මං අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම මේක යාට දෙනවා කියවන. මං හිතන්නේ පිරිමි ළමෙක් විදිහට. එයා ඒක මේ කියවන එක සෑහෙන වටිනවායි කියලා. සහ මම ඇත්තටම මන් ලිව්වේ මොනවද කියලා එයාට කියනවා අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම. මං කියන්න කැමතියි.
As to telling them which parts I wrote, absolutely and definitively no. Because being a mother, again, is also so much about exposure, right? From the moment you spread your legs for the doctor to take this child out of you, you are living a life of constant exposure, because your children ask you, what do you think about this? Do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to go to school? So constantly, you are being questioned and judged and criticized, and you have to expose your views and put out there what you really think, simply in order to be a good mother. And that's another way in which you lose a little bit of your individual sense of self. We need to keep a little bit of that, like a little bit of perfume that you hide away from everybody else because you don't want them to use it. It's your little perfume, and so this is my little bit of perfume.